Get away from her, you bitch!
And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
Ian, freeze! Get the cat! Get rid of the sound!
D is silent here, baby.
You're listening to DMR.
I'll be throwing one of these in with every purchase of 500 million or more. It's a piece.
Welcome back to Dewey's Movie Reviews. Hope you have been well. So I hope you caught my interview with real-life ghost hunter Calvin Price. If you haven't, jump on YouTube and watch that interview. It goes for about an hour and plenty of stories about some of the paranormal activities that he does capture when he goes into these haunted premises and gets everything banging and footsteps and all that jazz. So very cool interview. So today we've got a real treat for you. So we were lucky enough to interview a Hollywood director named Uwe Boll. So Uwe has been involved with directing well over 30 films. I believe it was 34. He also has a doctorate in literature, and he's worked with some of Hollywood's greatest actors, people like Jason Statham, also the late Ray Liotta, Burt Reynolds, and of course Dominic Purcell as well. So this is a really cool interview because it gives the inside info about what it's like to work with some of these great actors and Hollywood in general and the movies today. So he gives his opinion about where he thinks film is going, what influenced him growing up in the slasher eras in the 70s and 80s, and what he's working on at the moment. So buckle up, this is a very cool 50 minutes. He was good enough to interview or stay on the interview for 50 minutes. It was booked in for around about 30, but we got to talking and it rolled over quite well. So before we jump into the interview, let's have a look at some of our partners' stock, being MJ Bale. So this week I'll be focusing on the Spontini suit jacket and trouser pants. Have a look at this suit. It looks immaculate. So the Spontini jacket in a classic navy is a great 9 to 5 staple for any guy this season. It's crafted from 100% wool and made from a super 120s tropical weave that hails from Italy. Doesn't that just sound great? MJ Bale designed this piece for a slim fit and with a classic shoulder. So look at it, it's amazing. There's also a Spontini waistcoat that you can buy separately with this, and if you jump online now, I've just noticed that they are applying 25% off, so make sure you use the MJ Bale link in this description. Welcome back to DMR. Thank you for tuning back in. Much obliged. So today we've got a real special guest on the program. He is a Hollywood director, and his name is Uwe Boll, correct?
Yes, totally. You made it.
Well, thank you for coming on the program. So give us a little bit of a background about yourself. So you were born and raised in Germany, is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
And I started filming in Germany with like the typical thing, short movies and so on. Did a few films in Germany. And then 2000, I moved to, in a way, North America and shot a lot of US films. Bigger ones, like In the Name of the King with Jason Statham, and smaller ones, like Heart of America, about school violence with Elizabeth Moss, for example, who's now a big star. I couldn't imagine that she turned into like the Handmaid's Tale lead actress later and so on. Yeah,
that's one series that I haven't got to yet, but I hear very good things. But she's been in a lot of movies. I think was it The Invisible Man as well, or in that movie that came out recently?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
West Wing,
like The West Wing with Martin Sheen was her first, I think, bigger show where she was a regular, and then Handmaid's Tale is a big hit. But she did very theatrical films now too, and. I mean, she's a great actress. I saw that when I shot with her basically 20 years ago in Vancouver. Yeah.
So you live in Canada now, don't you? Is that correct?
Yeah, in Canada and Germany. Right now I'm in Germany, but so my wife is from Canada, and most of the films were shot in Vancouver in Canada.
Oh, so there you go.
It's basically living living on two continents from time to time, whatever is better for us for the moment, or for our productions and so on.
And I'd imagine you get some really beautiful shots up there in Canada for filming.
Yes, I mean, Vancouver has, you can fake the big city, like a lot of films in Vancouver are faking New York or Boston or Chicago, so you find the right corners. But you, of course, have the ocean, the beach, and the forest, like House of the Dead, for example, was all shot in the forest right by Vancouver. So you have it very close together, where within a half an hour, you are in a totally different location in a way, and you can make it as a totally different city.
Yeah. Okay. So when you grew up, like you were born in the mid-60s, correct? I think 1965 you were born.
Yeah,
so you were basically born in an era where horror movies and whatnot really started to hit the silver screen. Like I think it was 1973. Like I spoke about this with my guest last week when The Exorcist came out. Did you see that movie close to when it was coming out? I imagine you would have been quite young when it was coming out. But when did you see that movie?
I saw that later. But I faked my ID in Germany, my school ID, to get.
Don't worry, I did that as well as a young chap. I had a bit of a running with the law with fake ID, so that's all good.
I made out of the 6, like from the 65, I made a 3 out of the 5. So
that's exactly what I did
on paper. And then I remember watching right when they came was Halloween, Friday the 13th, Mother's Day, this kind of horror films, the slasher films came up when I was like 16, 16, 17. And
so do you get a lot of your inspiration from coming up in that era?
Yes. I mean, it was very influential on me, this kind of films where you got scared and where you felt like, well, how they did this, because at that point it was all practical effects, right? So, and you couldn't believe some man eater, how he's like getting the baby out and eats the baby and stuff like this. It was this kind of like, you wanted to get to the movies to get, to feel the fear, and you didn't went there to have necessarily just a cozy, nice evening or something. It was more like you wanted to get something exceptional, what was definitely not running in TV. Also at that time, right, you had only like the public TV in a way, and you could not see anything what is hard or bloody in TV at all, ever. It was just not existing. There was not even pay-per-view or pay TV existing at that point. So it was just DVDs, not DVDs, VHS tapes in the video VCR you could rent in the rental stores, or you went to the movies. And I watched, for example, Dawn of the Dead on Super 8mm. So
that came out in 78, correct?
Yes, you could. And you could rent like real Super 8mm films. And if you had a projector, and at that point there was not even video cameras around, so we had Super 8mm cameras to shoot short movies and stuff. So you had a projector, and we watched, and I was scared shitless on Dawn of the Dead. I felt like, oh God, I never saw something like this. It was very, very influential, but it was also the time where Jaws, like all this kind of things came parallel. The Sergio Leone westerns and so on. That is stuff we went to the movies to watch this on the big screen.
Do you feel like, because times have changed, obviously, and like I think people are a lot more desensitized to seeing violence and stuff like that, do you think the movies that are coming out these days are sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, watered down? Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not as impactful as they were back when all this stuff was first hitting the silver screen?
Yeah, I think also the young generation now, they are way more, in a way, further along as we were in regards of TikTok videos. They're watching videos the whole day on their cell phones. They know how special effects work, and they're harder. It's harder, I think, to scare them, because and that has not only to do with their own like education, kind of how they learn to make movies, or how they know it's all fake, but they getting flooded with stuff around the clock everywhere. Like you have all the streamers, you have all the TV channels, then you have all the internet stuff, and whatever, they are 12 and watching hardcore porn You know, like stuff like this. I mean, it's not a good thing that what's happening.
No, not at all.
But I'm not happy about all of this development. I see it with my own kids, but and it's not healthy for them. But what also happened to the films, what you mentioned is also true. I think they all only copy things now in horror, and they make you feel that it's not real in a way.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
So it's this kind of feeling where they don't really want to scare the shit out of you and change your life forever and traumatize you as the old horror films tried to do. And I like the old ones more, where you had really like this kind of like, oh my God. Like I remember when I went to Faces of Death, right? And it was the whole time, what is fake? What is real? Are they really killing the guy on the electric chair? And you never forgot it for the rest of your life. This kind of films in a way. Yeah.
So Faces of Death, that was because I had a cousin way back when that used to talk about that. Now was that the movie that was actually real people dying? Is that right? And then it was banned in a lot of countries, something along those lines. Is that correct?
Yeah, because they didn't even know what was real, what was not real. And there were like people got eaten by bears in a national park. And
that's right. Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and it totally looked like, I think it was real actually, and it was very, very scary, And then there was also like there were less films like this, but they had a bigger impact, like The Exorcist as an example, or then Damien the Omen and this kind of films. I think they had a bigger impact, because you didn't get flooded with that stuff every 2 weeks, another one now. And you had maybe 10 real horror films a year hitting the big screen.
Yeah.
So, and so it was like when Mike Myers came the first and stuff, like this kind of, that was really scary. And we waited for the new John Carpenter films at that point. Like that were really, I was a big John Carpenter fan, still am. And The Thing, that was really scary. It was, and we were thinking that how they did this actually, with real like animatronics, like the wolf where the head explodes or whatever, the thing comes out, similar to Aliens 1, where the alien comes out of the stomach. it was like crazy. When was Aliens 1? What year was that?
I actually think it was 1978.
Yeah,
it was late 70s because the sequel, there's very few movies where I feel that the sequel is better than the first, and I feel that in that franchise, the second one is better for me anyway. Is better than the first, only because so much more happens, and the movie doesn't suffer from what they call sequelitis. I think it was a natural evolution of the character Ripley. And then she's thrown back into the mix with all these, space marines who go out and do bug hunts and all stuff like that and get absolutely wiped out. And it's just her and her intuition, like she did in the first one. You know what I mean? So I really did love the second one. But you're right. Like that Aliens is like, I was born in 1985, right? So that came out a year after I was born. I think I saw it probably about 1994, 95. It might have been about 10 years old. And I remember, like you said about having a film being so impactful, like I remember watching it and feeling that sense of dread. And what we're watching is there's a situation that is completely out of control. We've got no choice as the audience but to sit there and watch it. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think there are, like the films these days that people make, I don't think, that a lot of the films that come out, they're just, you watch them and you forget about them. You know what I mean? There's not that impact.
First of all, I think with Terminator, it was a similar situation, but it was not a scary film, but it was like Terminator 2 is, I think, one of the best movies ever made up till today.
Correct.
Terminator 1 was a very solid, very good action film, but Terminator 2 was an absolute masterpiece. But I think a good example, what you just said about when you talk about horror, is when you see the original Shining. That was also, I bought the soundtrack to just scare the shit out of me at home when it's so anti, it's very, let's say, it makes you throws you totally off that soundtrack, but you have it like you visualize the little girls driving around the corner and this kind of stuff again when you listen to the soundtrack. And then when later with Ewan McGregor that new Shining thing came,
yes, which was Dr. Sleep.
Yes,
Dr.
and
Sleep.
I think that showed everything what got lost in the movies, because it's The Shining one, I think, was a masterpiece, and it lived from the performance. And you were like feeling the whole time super uncomfortable and tense. And the second one, I think, was just a nice try to tell not even a sequel or a whatever, right? So it's I felt it felt so flat. If you go for a second part from a film like this caliber of The Shining, they should never did that as a film. I mean,
Do you know what I also think as well? What can be an issue, especially with sequels, is that the time in between the first and the second, if it's too long, it'll lose its substance. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what drove them to it, right? So, but I was so disappointed because it barely had anything to do with The Shining. And I felt, okay, well, if they have the house again and whatever, and he comes there and then the demons in a way taking over his brain, whatever, that's what I was thinking when I heard from the film. And then I watched it and felt like, what is that? What it's just, they put just a title on it to act like it has something to do with the Shining. It was very, let's say, on only the surface. And but that is also, I feel with a lot of the films now coming out, they are more structured based on, I don't want to say algorithms, but based on this kind of like what they think could work, especially for the younger audience. And they didn't, and I think a lot of classic films, they didn't care first about the audience. They felt about, no, that is how we want to tell that story. And then let's see what the audience is doing with it.
You know what? I think what you just said then, with the films of yours that I've seen, I feel that's how you direct your films. Is that right? It's the movies that you want to make.
Yes. It's
That's a feeling, and that might sound a bit simple, but that's the feeling that I get. Like when I watched Assault on Wall Street, like I watched that. When was it? A week or two ago, and Dominic Purcell? Was that the main character in it? Yeah, isn't he? He's an amazing actor, isn't he? Like you've used him in a couple of the films, and he played Dracula in Blade 3, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just
he
got
hated
that.
Wesley Snipes. He told me the whole thing about Wesley Snipes.
Did he? Is that what he said?
They didn't get good along, and there was a scene where where they clashed, and he on purpose knocked him out with his shoulder. Because Dominic is bigger as Wesley Snipes is, right? So so he jumped into him and hit him with the shoulder full on the chin. I got very good along with Dominic because he's a big boxing fan like me, and so we talked about the fights coming up. We watched a lot of times like HBO at that point, and I feel also in Assault on Wall Street he maybe did his best performance because he is. A lot of times he plays that cold-hearted guy, whatever, the tough guy. And I think in Assault on Wall Street, he really is vulnerable. His world breaks apart, and he's acting like it, and not.
Yeah, I was 100%. Like when I was watching it, like you're feeling like this guy's pressure and anxiety with a sick wife, and like he's just all the brokers that he's put so much trust in with his investments have just literally treated him like a number, and then his life is just gone. The wife takes her own life, which is very, very sad. But why that drew me in so much, that movie, because you can just picture, like, especially even now with the world economy, like what we're going through at the moment, like with inflation and interest rate rises, like they've hit this country here in Australia very hard, like I'm sure they have around the world. But you can watching that movie, you can kind of see where people can get so desperate.
Yes. And it's also like when you had the 2008 was the real estate crisis, the mortgage crisis, people lost their houses. There were like 4,000 suicides in the US, right? And based on foreclosures, 4,000. And
that is
I
a lot.
Never saw, that is why I wanted to do the film, because I felt there is a total injustice because all that bankers got bailed out, and
Yes.
even Richard Fuld, who tanked the Lehman Brothers bank, made $400 million instead of like taking everything away from him because he destroyed $100 billion, right? So, and that is this kind of where the rich getting richer, and they're never getting really punished. They just write it off and then whatever, you know. And I feel what you said with the inflation is totally right. When we had in Germany, now we have massive inflation, like in US is massive inflation. And yes, I can afford to pay double for fuel or gas. But what is if you make $1,800 a month and now your electricity bill is not $60, it's $140.
Yeah.
That matters. That really matters. And the politics
100%.
and all that people, they have no clue what, I mean, I'm coming from nothing, right? My parents didn't have money and stuff like this. So it's like, they don't know really, and they don't identify with it, that you just cannot say everything now gets 10, 20% more expensive, including food in the supermarket. That has a direct impact on how parents feed their children, how they go in debt. The account goes in red, and then they're getting charged even more interest for the money. And the politics, I have the feeling they totally don't care about it. They have their own agendas and serving for a special clientele. And in US, I feel both parties have basically super rich donors, and they control them. In the very end, it's all like you can pick, like you want to support the oil and gas industry, or you want to support the bank and the tech industry in US. That are the two parties, you know. So, and nobody of them cares about the average worker. They always say they care so much, but then all the political decisions, especially at that time where the bailouts happened, nobody got compensated. Nobody.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, you know, it was
But
all like a talk, but then people lost their houses and they didn't get them back, and they even got like the bank even wanted more money from them after they threw them out of the houses. They still wanted, you owe us 20 grand, 30 grand. So with this anger, I shot Assault on Wall Street. I didn't want it to do. I was very disappointed on Wall Street 2, the second part from Oliver Stone's great film Wall Street 1, but Wall Street 2 was total bullshit. And I felt like, no, we need a very angry film about that. And that is what I was.
That's the one with Shia LaBeouf, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Josh Brolin, I think.
What?
And Josh Brolin.
Yes. And I mean, there was no comparison to the first one.
No, Gordon Gekko was such an iconic swindler, wasn't he? He was Michael Douglas. He really nailed it. And so did Charlie Sheen was it Bud Fox? I think that was his name, Bud Fox, who he played. That was an amazing movie. Very good movie.
Yeah, and I think
it fitted in with
Michael Douglas portrayed him how they really are. You know, like the greed is good is exactly what they're doing day for day, like all of them, you know, and everything else is just what I liked in that character of Gordon Gekko was this kind of he said how other people covering it up, but he said it in the face of everybody. You know, like you will be out of your job, we plunder you out, you're done, and we are rich. Too bad for you. So, and I felt that was very good that was not existing in Wall Street 2. That was just like rich people under themselves driving around from whatever to the country home and then back to Wall Street. I mean, I didn't saw really the story. I could not tell you the story now from Wall Street 2, even if I watched that film 20 years after Wall Street 1. Yeah, and it was all about they lost all their jobs, right? Because he was a trader. He took the company and then plundered out the company, divided it up. Charlie Sheen's father lost it. So boom, the story is right there because it was crystal clear and important. And so, but I mean, I love it to talk about films in general and about the film education we all went through. And it's shocking for me that a lot of people now, like people on your age, most of them don't even know the films. You know, when I meet 30 years old people or 35 years old people, a lot of people, if you say Wall Street 1, they never watched it. They have no clue what I'm talking about. You say Taxi Driver, whatever, like Goodfellas. They actually never watched that films. And for me, it's like, how can you ever know about film if I say The Deer Hunter and you have no clue what I'm talking about? But that's
what I mean. Like there are, don't get me wrong, there are some great films these days, right? Like when they come out, but as you said, like you just mentioned, Goodfellas, right? And every time that movie is on, I think for me, when you can watch a film and it feels fresh every time, that's a brilliant film. Absolutely. And like with Ray Liotta in that film, like it was on today because I got like my commercial real estate agent and I've got, you know, movies playing in the background and works like a radio for me, right? But Goodfellas on today, and just you've worked with Ray, or you did work with Ray. Like, the guy is an amazing actor. He was an amazing actor. Like, what was he like? When did you work? You worked with him on Suddenly, and also was it what was the other one, the fantasy one? I just started watching that tonight.
King. Yeah, that's in the Name of the King. And I mean, Suddenly was so much more. First of all, it was more fun to shoot in a way because he was in his element, playing a cop. That was that remake of the Frank Sinatra film with Sterling Hayden, and Dominic Purcell basically played the bad guy and he played the good guy. And so he was very comfortable. He liked everybody on set because Michael Paré is a friend of him, friend of mine, and Dominic was in it. So that was great. In the Name of the King, it was not his element. So he felt like fantasy stuff, sword fighting. So he needed had to train with the sword and stuff because normally he likes to shoot people. So, but I mean, he always had a great sense of humor, and he's just like, you don't have to tell him how to play something. I mean, he just recognized how to do it. And he can do the evil people, of course, very easy, but he can also do the let's say the warrior in a way, but with a dark shadow above his head. You know, like this kind of like, he cannot never be like the key hero or something. He always has a backstory, what makes his life sad or miserable at one point, you know. And no, I mean, for me, it was a big honor standing in front of Ray Liotta and having shooting a film with him after exactly what you said. I mean, Goodfellas is in my top 10 of all times. And that is just a great feeling to have somebody in front of you. Like what I had with Burt Reynolds also, he wasn't in the Name of the King. And
yes, I noticed that because I'm about 25 minutes into it. So you've worked with some greats that are unfortunately no longer with us. So it must be amazing just to have those, you know, 6 months or whatever however long you film for, and then, you know, you get that moment that you can, and then they're gone. It's like, you're just very blessed to have that situation.
Yes, and I'm very happy that I had the chance to have like dinners with them or talk with them about life and their career. So that was a pleasure, and I'm very happy that I had that situation. Yeah. I mean, we can go 5 minutes, 10 minutes longer. Don't worry about it. So it's all good.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So with your movies, you've also got video game adaptation. So tell me about that. Are you a gamer yourself?
I'm an average gamer. My kids are extremely professional gamers. You know, but House of the Dead came right after Heart of America. And Heart of America didn't sold, right? It was not didn't make any money. And I recognized at that point, it's not good enough to make a good film. You need also film what people buy and to raise money. And then they approached me with this House of the Dead thing. And I said, I played that game in the arcades, like sitting there just shooting zombies. And they said, yeah. And then like, that is exactly what we want to do. They had the script, they had the rights, they had it all. So then I did the film, and it sold worldwide. It worked very well financially because it was not too expensive to shoot it. And then I kept doing this kind of films because there was money to make. So you feel like, you know what, I have to ride that wave here right now. So I did Blood Rain, Alone in the Dark, Far Cry, but to move then 5 years later, after I did a lot of these films, I felt empty, because it was not like as you said in the beginning, like I want to tell the stories I want to tell, but these were not stories I wrote myself. They were not stories like where I had the idea, and I felt like when I did Postal, what is also a video game based movie, but that was the first one where I did it more personal, where I put my own ideas in, my own script writing in a way to make a very ridiculous, politically incorrect film. And then you can say after it, I moved more into this kind of drama, thriller situations like a Suddenly, Assault on Wall Street, Darfur, Rampage. They're way more personal for me, and I'm more connected to it as I was at with the video game based films.
Yeah, I find it hard sometimes when because people love video games, right? So what have you seen The Last of Us?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. Had you played the game?
No, I never played the game. No.
So I'd played the game in 2014, and it literally shaved about 5 years off my life. It was that realistic and that stressful. My wife, she's my wife now, but she was my girlfriend I lived with at the time. She was actually concerned the amount of stress and anxiety that this game was causing. So when they had Pedro Pascal as Joel, and I thought when it was coming out, I thought this is going to be amazing. It really was. It was really good. So you've done a couple of zombie movies, correct? You've done a few.
Yeah, no, I did House of the Dead, but we had like different kind of. We had vampires in Blood Rain. Then we had in Alone in the Dark, like kind of creatures, but also that creatures are making human zombies basically. So in Alone in the Dark, we had that. And in Dungeon Siege, we had like this kind of orcs, Lord of the Rings style. And then in Far Cry, we have genetically changed like kind of human robot warriors who are not zombies, but they are basically on remote control. So I'm a big zombie fan in general. And, no, the Last of Us was, I think, by far the best video game adaptation.
I think it was, because that edge of your seat stuff, and the whole thing about the game is that it wasn't a game where you basically had stacks and stacks of ammo. It was very much a survival horror game where ammunition was scarce, and not only are you in a land filled with zombies, you're in a land filled with arsehole people that will literally string you up and eat you, some of them, because there's no food. Yeah. So that's why I thought it worked very, very well. So it was a good show. But I'm
curious to see if they do a second season. It was a success. I don't know if they will. But what I like also, that is when we talked in the beginning about the new world with the streamers. What is good, I think, with this is you have more opportunities to make films and sell films because you have different tastes. But also this kind of Pedro Pascals having a real career now, because they can show what they can. And I think there are a lot of people in TV shows now or streamer shows where you know them since 20 years as little side actors here and there, but now they are getting bigger parts and they show that they are exceptional good and they can carry a whole show. And that was impossible in the world where only the major companies existed. When you went there and said, I do Alone in the Dark, but I have like not Christian Slater, Stephen Dorff, and Tara Reid. At that point, Tara Reid was hot because of American Pie. If you go with maybe even better actors as this three, but they would never make that film. They would say, well, we're not giving you $30 million for Alone in the Dark with this cast. Forget it. And that is I think that changed now. I think now they're looking more into the content and building their own stars in a way. And I mean, Peter Pascal, even if in Mandalorian he is great too, even if you don't see him really.
That's right. He's brilliant in that. He's brilliant in that.
Yeah.
He's very good.
Yeah, I like Mandalorian more as the last Star Wars films actually, because it's more concrete story they tell, and I can relate to it more. And he was great in Narcos.
That's where he kind of first came about, didn't he? When he was chasing Pablo Escobar.
Yes, you know,
brilliant.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking these days is that, especially with some of the franchises that we've seen, and I won't keep you too much longer, but franchises like Jurassic World and Park, right? So I grew up with those films. We're at 6 films now. They've got to give it a break for at least 15 years or change it into a streaming service series, because I think that's the only way forward. Because if you keep flogging the story, same with Terminator, it's at 6 films. If you keep flogging the same story, it's gonna dilute, and people are gonna just not care anymore. You can't recreate the same thing that came out in 1984 or came out in 1993, tell the same story over and over again, slightly different, and people are just going to turn off. So I think, like they've done with the Star Wars, with switching from the Mandalorian, I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yes, and but I agree with you. Like, we have a real problem, I think, in the big theatrical films. What comes a lot of talent and interesting shows from the streamers and also from the studios working for the streamers now, like Showtime and so on. But in the films, I'm totally there with you. I don't want to see the new Indiana Jones. To be honest, like, even if they reactivated an 80 years old Harrison Ford, I give a shit. And the Fast and the Furious, I just cannot, like, since the last 5, I couldn't even watch. I watched.
Well, that's the thing. I've stopped at
the point.
Yeah, look, I stopped at the 2nd or 3rd Fast and the Furious. So it's not that I don't like car movies. It's just like it was a dime a dozen. Like, I think they're up in space in one of them. How do you get in space?
Yeah, I don't know, but they survive even if they're normal humans and not like the Avengers. They survive everything, like flying from a bridge 300 meters on the asphalt, and Vin Diesel comes out of the car. So, and and this is where a big problem I think in the movies is now, that the studios betting only big. They're only putting enormous amount of monies in the production to be whatever looking big. But the story went totally downhill. And for, like, let's say, people between 30 and 60 years old is nothing to watch in the movie theaters, because you can go with your kids and films, but Jumanji, whatever, Mario Brothers, but that is for kids. And then for the adults, they all assume you go also, as even when you're older, in the franchises. But they're all dead for me. I mean, I cannot stand it, and because they're boring, and how they end, how they start. So that is the tough part for that medium range genre film. What had a bigger shot 20, 30 years ago to actually make box office. So that times are over, because they're also spending so much in advertising that it's almost annoying.
Yeah. See, I think with what's happening with Marvel is that with the last Avenger movies, which was Infinity War, and the other one, what was the other one? Endgame. I think that those 2 films were awesome, incredible films, but they were too big, because now you've had such a climax of such a story for over 10 years, and I feel that Marvel they're going to be on limited time, I think, because they're going to, again, they're pumping out so many movies, it's like people will start to turn away.
Yeah. You have 3, 4 different Spider-Mans in the last 15 years, right? So you have and different actors, whatever, and then they tell basically the same story again. And it's it's what I think you totally get it. You're right with it, that it's people at one point will let that movies fail, and we had a lot. Shazam now failed. Black Adam failed. I mean, when I saw The Rock as Black Adam, I felt like, why? Like, what? Who is Black Adam? Like, what? I've never heard about Black Adam before. And now every single mini comic book gets blown up to whatever. The world waited for this individual films. And I felt from all the superhero stuff, only The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger was an amazing film, and The Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. There were two films that were for me like total standalone masterpieces. If they're based on a comic or not, I give a shit. But they were like really great. And the first Batman or whatever, like because it was new, it was this kind of wow, you know. So, but then you don't need a whole Hulk series with films, or you know, every Avenger had his own theatrical franchise. And
it's just money. It's just money. That's all it is now.
Aquaman and the Iron Man, and it's endless. Yeah, but I hope that the audience switches, right? I hope that the audience let them fall and say enough of it. We need a different kind of world again, where we see Apocalypse Now, where we see a Goodfellas kind of film, like, you know, like where we have that on the big screen running for 2 months and making hundreds of millions of dollars, and not like 1 week in, next week out.
See, I think also the problem is as well, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I'm a massive fan of The Matrix, right? I saw it twice when it came out in 99. The first 3 films were great, usually. The second one was, you know, pretty good. Third one, a little bit less good. But, yeah, all the films are pretty good. But with this new one, I don't know if you've seen the latest one, it was just all over the place. Like, it would have been much better as a series. They had some good ideas, but they all just kind of weren't explored enough. And it was like this big ball of just ideas. Do you know what I mean? It didn't really land too well. So that's why I'm thinking with some of these franchises that if you make the right move and skip over to series, like, I think you're going to do a lot better. Would you do something like that? Have you done any series? Uwe, have you got anything on the horizon?
No, so far, I never did a TV series, but I would love to do one if it makes sense, right? If it's like a good story. But I'm a big fan of this kind of 8 episodes and then it's over, and not like keeping it open because you could do a second season and then they make things out of the ass. I felt a lot of times when you watch like good shows like Ozark, for example, on Netflix, great show, but it got weaker and weaker and weaker, you know, because I think that was a show a little like Narcos and this kind of stuff, and you should write it in a way that, you know, okay, it's 2 seasons or it's 3 seasons, but we bring it to a climax and it's the end, like Breaking Bad or something, you know, where you had the feeling he did that on purpose. They did Breaking Bad the way they told it, and it was from the beginning on clear it will be, I don't know, 5 or 6 seasons to finish it, and or I don't know. So, but I think with Ozark, I think because it was successful, they kept going with it, and it was 1 season too much. They should just kill everybody off, because they would be all dead, right? The Colombian drug mafia, they would never let them get away with it for so long. And you know, and they getting out of it, they would be so dead. And I felt like it was
you're right. It's just like you got the kids running around doing deals and with crypto and all this crap. And I was like, money laundering. I'm like, no, you're wrong. They've been dead like 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, absolutely. You know,
too good.
Yeah.
One final question. I'll just ask you about you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll just ask you about your upcoming films, which is First Shift? Is that the one?
First Shift, yeah. It's shot it in New York, and in March. And it is basically about 2 cops. They have to work the first time together. Kristen Renton, she was in Sons of Anarchy, Charlie Hunman's girlfriend, and a lot of other films. And Gino Pizzi, he was with Jennifer Lopez, the lead in Shades of Blue, also a TV show. And so we did, basically you follow them through their first shift, and you have a lot of individual episodes. I have one great mafia episode where I hired like Gary Pastore. He was in 10 Scorsese films.
Oh, really?
He's always one of the mafia guys. When you see him, you know him right away. And then he played the bad guy in The Deuce with James Franco. He was the main mafia guy who killed everybody. The TV show, and he was also in The West Wing and in House of Cards. And James McMiniman, he was in Orange Is the New Black, one of the leads. So and there are like great episodes with great actors, and I was able to get them all because I shot in New York. So that is a big advantage, right? When you say, look, just do it. We pick you up in the morning, you're every night back home, then it's easier to get actors with bigger credits for not so much money. You know, as soon as you want to fly them to Vancouver, it's a totally different thing. It's like triple or 5 times more money. So, and I think it's a good film for me after like coming back after 5 years, because it's not. It's like a kind of now what is the name of it? Like a road movie. Because they go to Manhattan, Queens, Staten Island, Brooklyn, and have like very violent episodes, but they also have normal police work. An old guy gets a heart attack, stuff like this, and they have to save a dog. So, and they have a lot of humor in it. Kristen is a very, let's say, funny thing, and she goes into that day totally energized, and Gino Pizzi doesn't want her. Right. You know, because so he's like, I don't want her as my partner. I don't want a partner at all. He gives the captain shit for it, but he has to do it. It's this typical like kind of buddy cop film. Yeah. So what you have, and then there comes overshadowing like brutal scenes where it's more like a Southern Wall Street Rampage style, where you feel like, wow, what's going on? So I'm very happy that I did it. We're in post-production. And I was able to get Ethan Manikis as the editor. He did Sin City, From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of big films, and he's editing it right now in Los Angeles. So,
very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward in fall or winter to release that film.
That'd be good. So, and the next one's 12 hours, is that right?
Yeah, 12 hours. I want to do next is a high concept film where a guy in South Africa, like an American in South Africa, he needs to save his family, killing 5 people in 12 hours. And he gets blackmailed into it, basically. And he needs to find out with the audience during what he's doing, why. Like, why I need to kill you when, you know, like this. So he's not shooting everybody and doesn't talk to them. He like talks to them and say, give me a reason not to shoot you. But why they are who is this? Who kidnapped my wife? Right. So, and I think that it's a very edgy thriller. And I was not able to get cast so far. That is a film you need one bigger name because it's not an ensemble cast. It's basically one guy alone in Africa, and then the rest could be locals, right? So, but that one name matters. And we cannot shoot in summer because then it's winter in South Africa. So July, August. So I have 6, 7, 8 months time now to hopefully prep that film and get the right actor doing it. And but I love films like this. I like like films, where you have like where after 5 minutes it's clear where the ride will go, and you have no clue what will happen next, and it goes like in a crazy twists and turns where he gets arrested from the police in between and stuff. And and I think that are films I like to watch, and hopefully there is a market for it. So it's interesting because, for example, Netflix, they bought The South on Wall Street, they bought Rampage, they showed them, and they all did very well on Netflix. But they never gave me money to make my own film, right? So if I say, okay, why you didn't fund me? Like, give me money for 12 hours. No. So it's kind of frustrating, So but I hope I will score, and I like it to be in movie theaters first.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. Like going back to the Matrix, the most recent one, the 4th one, it was literally in theaters for almost like a week, and then went straight to streaming services, and it just fizzled. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't see at any point of that. Either keep it in the cinema for 6 weeks or whatever, then put it over to streaming services whenever. You know what I mean? Like when I was a kid, it was like you saw a film, you weren't seeing it on VHS for a year, if memory serves. You know what I mean? It was a long, long time before you got anything. And I think that's what kind of loses that movie magic almost, because you're getting stuff almost way too quickly.
Yes. Look at The Irishman. You know,
Yes,
it's like, I mean, it's not the quality of a Goodfellas, but
No.
it's still a good movie with great cast, Martin Scorsese, and I love this kind of mobster stories. So, but where is it? You know, and I normally own like DVDs, Blu-rays from the films with the director's commentary, with the making of, with all that stuff. What I always did for all my films, and I won't continue to do this, to release on Blu-ray and DVD, and then being in the streaming TV world, but people come back to it. And I think that is also a thing. It's interesting what a guy from the Hollywood Reporter wrote something about me, and he said, when he talked to me, and he said, everybody knows you, and he said nobody knows anymore any director. Like there are no directors in the way that people like know them, like they know actors, but it's their own fault, because they made it that the people now getting anonymous, they're not even the end credits running. You know, like when you watch Netflix, boom, there is no end credits. It goes to the next show. So, and there's this thing, they omitting the crew and the people that make the films. And without theatrical and without DVD and physically Blu-rays in your hand, the director is just a crew member. And, you know, and how I grew up, it's definitely the director is the filmmaker, the driving force of a production. And I think it's important that people know a director. And I was just
100%.
lucky that I made so many films in the past that people know me based on all the films I made 20 years ago and 15 years ago and 10 years ago, you know. But it changed so much the last 5-6 years that they're all like now tools, nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. Well, mate, we'll wrap it up there, Uwe Boll. So thank you very much, sir, for coming on DMR down here in Australia. And no doubt I'll be looking for the new ones when they come out. I've really enjoyed your films that I've watched in the past and over the last couple of weeks. So thank you for the time, mate, and good luck in the future, Mr. Boll.
Thanks so much. Bye. Bye-bye.
All right, mate. Thank you. Bye-bye. So there you have it, an amazing interview with Hollywood director Uwe Boll. I'd like to thank his PR company as well for getting in touch with me about a month ago. So it was a real treat to interview him. So stay tuned to DMR. Hopefully we're going to have similar interviews in this interview series taking place this year. We've got a few things in the pipeline that may get us some access to further Hollywood directors and some of the stars as well. So stay tuned. And as always, laters on the Menjay. What an amazing interview with Dr. Uwe Boll. He is working on 3 films at the moment, so be sure to check them out in the near future. Cheers.